Hi, Todd. How's it going?
Hey, Mandy. Good. How are you?
Hi. I'm good. I'm
Right on.
good. This is great. Can you hear what my boyfriend's on rescue training right now? He's with the North Shore Rescue. Can you hear it in the background?
Totally fine.
Really?
Totally fine.
Oh, thank goodness. Okay, good. Because I'm like, I'll go in the bathroom.
Yeah, no, I can hear you fine. Yeah. Thank you for
Oh,
taking
good.
some time to join us.
Absolutely. This is so like, I just don't know even where to begin. I think it's like 13 years ago that we probably would have had like our first encounter in
Probably, hey.
the what was it? It was the tour to trailer.
Yes, that's what it was.
Oh my gosh. And to
Uh,
think like
that was
13 years
probably
ago.
one of the coolest radio promotions that I did, where we'd literally pack up the radio station and just take it to like high traffic areas in the city of Vancouver. Like,
Todd,
what a
it's
crazy
funny to
idea.
even hear you say that. Like I'm thinking to myself, like we would sit outside of the Massey Tunnel. Do you remember that for a week?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And now I feel like if we ever tried to do that, there would be so many people that would be upset.
Totally. Totally. That's crazy. Wow, it's been over a decade. I mean, I guess my kids
Yeah.
are 10 and 8 now. Like just
And I didn't know you when you were a dad.
blink of an eye. Yeah, it's incredible.
Wow, very cool. Well, thank you so much for reaching out. And I know we had
Yeah,
kind of
no.
lightly touched base a while back, and then
Yeah, I mean, I think it was probably right at the start of the pandemic. And then I mean, I don't know about you, but my world has just been a clusterfuck in the last 12 to 15 months. Like I almost stopped doing the podcast. Um, Thankfully, BCIT, was able to pick me up, and I still had a full time job. There a lot of people had it way worse than me, but I was so close to stopping because I mean, the amount of energy and time it takes to put these things together, and then to lose all this sponsorship money, and it's like, well, like if I'm gonna take all this time and energy, and I don't get to, maybe sometimes I don't get to go to my kid's soccer game because I need to do an interview, or like where's the monetary stop for that? There has to be some sort of compensation, right? Like I'm not only doing it for money, but if I'm not making money,
you got to question it.
like yeah, like I have a long storied career in radio. So it's not like I'm looking and yearning for that, like that thing, that spark, because I've had it, I've been there, I've done it. This is just to
Yeah.
piss around and have fun and talk to friends like you, and
Todd, I had no idea that you nearly, and sorry, I'm like diverting the conversation, but I had no idea you nearly canceled it.
really close, like really close.
Wow. And so what was the turning point?
Well, it was just that it still brought in enough money that it still made sense to keep slogging
Good
out.
for you.
Yeah, and
Good.
it's just that, like, even though it's only say it's a couple grand a month, well, that pays for like all of our
Oh,
vacations for the year. Like,
yeah.
it makes it so that I can get my kids goalie equipment and not feel like I'm gonna have to like go to the bank and like get a loan.
Jeez.
So
Yeah. And to even just like have our conversation start from like tour to trailer, broadcasting live on the side of, I remember we were at the PNE and we were at
I'll win everywhere.
obviously the Massey Tunnel. And it's
Yeah.
just like, and then to hear this full circle. And I agree with you. I mean, it is just right now, pandemic wise, you're just like rolling with the punches. And I
Totally.
think anybody, and I still have so many wonderful close friends that are still a part of the industry, but anybody who's in there, I can honestly say is like a handful of friends. And it's like, just hold on because it's few and far between.
Oh yeah. Like I
Mm-hmm.
didn't even make an effort to get back into radio because once I got let go, so many of my friends were like, dude, you like start a podcast. I'm like, well, you make it sound like I have a wife and kids. I can't just like start a podcast. I'm like, yeah, well, get them to pay you. Well, it can't be that easy.
No,
They're
no.
like, dude, like just talk to the people that you've hosted a bunch of things for, or maybe a GM at a bar, or like a beer company or coffee companies, or like just talk to them and see maybe they would. And then lo and behold, sure enough, they did.
Oh, well, and you put that out there, and that's a great thing. And I mean, you've got such a history with everybody, obviously here in Vancouver, that now it allows you to even get out further.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm in multiple, podcast networks.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's taken off. And how for you, how's your circle with COVID, and like, how did your world change, to meet this
Oh,
pandemic head on? Like we're forced to.
it's interesting you asked that, Todd. There was a moment last night that really hit me, and I think business has picked up. In full transparency, business has really started to pick up. I would say ever since January, I saw a huge shift. Now, you and I talk about our experiences together 13 years ago, over a decade ago. And so my whole background came from the broadcasting side, and going from the Fox over to the Beat, which is now Virgin Radio, morning and afternoon show co-hosting. And then 2012, I actually decided to start my own business and started contracting myself out. CTV at the time, I was sponsored by Reebok. They really helped me in that. And basically, I started to, contract myself out to all these different stations, and then being TV stations as a majority in different magazine outlets and whatnot, and working heavily through that. And then 2 years ago, I started to see a niche for bringing in healthy habit practices within corporate workplaces, which you and I can probably have a good chuckle about from time to time from our good old history. And I probably did not fall into that category very well at the time that we're talking of.
Yeah.
But I mean, we live and we learn and we know and we become more in tune with ourselves. And so I'm actually sitting here on this podcast with you after I just got down from the grind. It opened yesterday, the gross grind. And I'm like, oh, I got to tackle that. That's the second day of the year it's open, and it's a huge passion of mine. So now when we talk about when the pandemic hit, I'd actually started to get into the corporate workspace of working with a ton of different companies. So I had just started Keynote Speaking, and I had my first gig was lined up for March, and I was actually in Arizona when the pandemic hit. And all I remember was it was this ripple effect, Todd, and it was like, canceled, 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 canceled. And everybody was in fear, right? Which is obvious. Now, what was interesting about that is that, so now I'm represented since last August by the National Speakers Bureau. And they helped me to, get out to different companies and create an even more solid foundation. But at that time, I was creating my own contracts. So therefore, I never in one of my contracts stated the deposit is for, how do I put it this way? Anything other than the fact that you will, not get it back if we don't reschedule or anything like that. I had none of that stated. It was all things that I created on my own. So not only was I reimbursing the second payments, I was reimbursing the first payments. And I think last year was fueled with a lot of fear. And when I say that, right. And it was just like, I look at others, and I actually don't look at others first. I look at myself. Like I didn't find my feet until this past January. And I tackled a lot of opportunities last year, and I wouldn't say until this January. So I guess, what is that now? 11 months, 10 months after everything hit, that now things are flying. And so where I come back full circle to say I was thinking about it last night was that I was thinking to myself, my gosh, did I ever operate on a lot of fear last year? And I genuinely think it was because it was what I was feeling from others. It was that sense of urgency of them being like, we need the deposit back. We can't confirm anything further. Everything was just halted. So, yeah.
And so how did you get into Keynote Speaking? Like, how did that happen?
So I had actually, it was about 3 years ago I started to notice. So with regards to starting at my own business, I also developed an app. We work with clients all over the world, and we work with them fitness and nutrition wise. And when I say we, it's a team that works within it. Now, what I had started to notice is that I was being asked to speak at different expos, and a lot of them more Toronto side of things. And then what ended up happening is I started to notice there was a corporate demand. And I was like, I am not ready to speak in corporations. I've got no idea where the heck this is coming from. But I started to notice that a lot of the same demand of what corporations wanted me to talk about was the same. And so I stepped back. I went to a mentor of mine that I've had in the speaking realm. And I said, hey, you know what? Like, do you think this is something that I should tackle? Like, is this something that you see in the world of keynote speaking as in demand? And he said, 100% I do. There's no question that you would excel at this from your background and your experience. So I actually did the Harvard Leadership Program I got into last year. So I spent a lot of my time last year investing in education. So once my bubble was burst with the whole first, what was it, 10 months of my keynote speaking career, really starting off with like purpose and now a new alignment and a new path, and getting signed by the National Speakers Bureau was huge. I worked on that relationship for months and months. It felt like a job, right? Like you're all of a sudden applying again, but you're like, I run my own business, but I'm applying. And it was quite entertaining. But yeah, so anyways, it constant investment in my own personal development and my own contributions towards different corporations. And, we're now in the virtual world of work. So a lot of my keynote speaking topics have catered around healthy habits within the virtual workspace. And how can we ensure that if you're staring at your screen for 10 plus hours a day now, where is time for family? Where is time for the non-negotiables that you have personally within your life? Are you still following your professional non-negotiables? Like, is there so many distractions within your day, which are said to happen every, couple minutes at this rate? What is your productivity level? How engaged are you with the company that you're working with? So yeah, this is where it's grown to. And now, thankfully, as of the last 5 months, so January to now, it started to take off.
Yeah, it's amazing. I was just checking out your website before jumping on, and you're mentioning the, boosting productivity within the company, but like engagements and happiness. And of course, you got the Hooked on Habits podcast. Like, you must not like free time.
My gosh. You'd think that. No, my free time is getting out into the forest with having no cell phone on me and no signal.
That's the way to go, right? I can't wait out.
Great.
Somebody, I can't remember, was somebody in, it was a DJ in Calgary who had said something out about, what do you think about social media and this and that, whatever. And I wrote back saying, I can't wait to leave social media in the dust. Like, if there's one thing that I don't like about podcasting and just kind of keeping up with everybody, is that constant demand for content. It's just not soul crushing, but it's so like, oh, if you don't want to do it, it's really hard to be creative just because.
Well, and I think that there's a really interesting, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because I think that there's such a double, like there's two ways to look at it. We get to connect with our community, which is fantastic. Everyone that's listening, that's like what drives you to do this, to come onto this, podcast and talk to people, which is fantastic. But the hardest part is that it's so demanding in the way of like new content. People generally have to see something, from what I hear, 3 to 5 times until they actually see it and consider seeing it for the first time.
Right.
So for you, it's like, oh my gosh, I've put this out 4 times now. Like, this is old material. And to the general public that's scrolling, it's like, oh gosh, this is what Todd's up to today. And you're like, no, I put that up 2 months ago.
And that's so true. That is so true, right? Because it's just like over and over. You're like, see, like, yeah, no, it's cool. They got the guy from Clutch on, great, or whatever it is. Yeah. But they may like the tweet, but they don't check it out. It's like, oh, just check it out. It's fun. It's good. It's like, so it's tricky. Yeah. It's tricky for sure.
It is. And I think that there's another piece to it too, where, and I'm starting to learn a lot more about this thanks to having more hands in the business because I can't do it all on my own. So I'm hearing exactly what you're saying, because I'll be very honest, I need support in it as well. And I've had support, I think, since 2016 when it comes to marketing and social media.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, and it's just something I just, I got very overwhelmed by. And what I would also point out is the algorithms. Like there's a lot of pieces of that where it's like you can put out your best, most prized possession, your best podcast interview, and you're like, did anyone see this?
I know,
I
right?
don't think anyone saw it.
Or you just throw it like a random picture of a deer drinking a beer and it gets like 500 likes and 16 million shares. Like,
Yeah.
that's not what I wanted you to engage in. Come on.
Yeah. Let's talk content.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to get outside of, the public speaking and health and podcasting and stuff. And I want to get into what you were like as a kid.
Oh,
What are you playing around the house, like for music and stuff? What's in the Gill house? What are your parents playing you? What's the music?
a lot of Phil Collins.
Nice.
A lot of Phil Collins, a lot of Jimi Hendrix. I probably weaseled in a lot of Celine Dion as well.
Yeah.
We got to lift a lot of different sides of the spectrum.
Yeah.
I even said, I remember as a kid growing up, like this was when you got your like kindergarten books filled out and it said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I always wrote Celine Dion. And my parents were like, what is happening here?
What?
Yeah. But here we are now, and I can't sing even in the shower, so there was no hope.
Yeah.
But
music was always pretty prevalent in your house, eh?
Oh, huge. My mom, actually, it's so funny that I got into radio and even podcasting still. And we're talking right now. She actually had a huge love for DJs growing up. And when I say that, she'd call into the radio station all the time and, request songs and everything like that. So, of course, when she saw that her daughter was doing this, she's like, this is so cool. So, yeah, music was huge.
What was your first concert you went to?
That would have been, okay, my first CD was Janet Jackson. That's like the first thing that comes to mind. I think my first concert that I went to was Alanis Morissette. I want to say, yeah, it was either, it was either her or Shania Twain. I don't know which one was first.
What are you binge watching right now lately?
You're not going to be impressed. I really don't watch TV.
Really? Good for you. So what do you do? What do you flip around on like YouTube videos and Facebook videos? Like, what do you do?
By the time, so I will work during the day. My boyfriend and I will go out for a run, or I'll go meet the girls and we'll go do some sort of like grind or trail run or whatever it is. And no word of a lie, 8:30 hits. Okay. And I'm looking at my clock right now. I'm like, oh, I'm doing good. I'm still awake.
I'm starting to feel pretty tired here.
And
That's awesome.
we're in bed. We're in bed. 5:30 rolls around real quick. And I swear that morning show life.
5:30 in the morning.
Yeah. What? And up until the point, actually, so my Bernese mountain dog, he really is to thank for getting me into the love of getting into trail racing and being involved in that community. But he actually would have me up at 4:30 in the morning. And so morning show radio always started at 3:30. And so 4:30 felt good to me.
Right.
And so 5:30 sometimes is really just sleeping in, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, you're obviously healthy, you're fit. What are your sports? What do you like to watch? What do you like to play?
Ooh, so right now I am huge into trail running. So that's my go-to. I've got a big the races are canceled for a majority of them. Yeah. We've got our fingers crossed for a couple, but there's one coming up in June called the Knee Knacker.
Okay.
it goes from Horseshoe Bay to Deep Cove for anybody that's familiar with the North Shore trails.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful one. And it's 50 kilometers, just shy of 50. And it is supposed to be running in July, but we're going to actually do it in June. And then in July, I've got an 85-kilometer planned in Whistler. And then another 50 in September. And that one, I think, is about 12,000 feet elevation.
That's
so
insane.
they're, so when you ask what I'm binge watching,
you're like,
this explains it.
I'm not binge watching anything. Oh my God.
I'm snoring before the television goes on.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm going to respect your time here. I'll wrap it up with a tough question for you. Okay. I've been kind of lobbing you softballs here. What's your career highlight? Can you nail it down to one thing?
Something that really stands out to me, and it's the first thing that comes to mind, so I'm going to go with it. Rihanna went on tour, and I remember solo, I got to go on stage at Rogers Arena and welcome her on stage. And that was like, I remember the request coming in very last minute, and I just went into my closet and I picked out this dress that my best friend still makes fun of me of. He's like, "What the heck were you wearing?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I was so nervous." And but it went well. And so I would definitely say introducing Rihanna at Rogers Arena. It's the first thing that comes to mind. I know there's a lot of career highlights, but I'm going to go with the first one.
Knees are shaking as you're doing it, and such a scary thing to be in that environment, and you have to do it. It's like a sink or swim. You're doing it.
It is. And it's a terrible thing to wear heels as a woman when your knees are shaking. I don't recommend it, because you're literally on stage and you're already A, in a dress, you're B, your legs are shaking, C, you're like, I don't think my feet are on the ground still. And then you just do it. And it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. What's the plan for you for the rest of the year? How far do you have things mapped out?
Truthfully, it's interesting. COVID's been a huge reality shaker in the way of having control over next to nothing. It's exciting. I tell you, all of these events that are upcoming, and genuinely speaking, they've all been self-created for the most part, because, you use certain benchmarks and you say to yourself, I'm going to hit this or I'm going to hit that. And I'm using that in like a athletic standpoint at the moment, but I'm also going to say it in a business way too. I said at the beginning of the year, I wanted to do a keynote every single month for this year. And February was my only one so far, but I made up 2 the next month. And it just allows me, the last one I was on was 7,000 people. And the next one coming up is 650. And I'm broadcasting right from my home studio office, like you're sitting in right now. And I'm hardline to every, outlet in the house. And it's wonderful to be back with people. I know I'm not able to hug them or give them a high five, anything like that quite yet.
Close enough.
It's so close, and it is, you can feel it. You can see the interaction in the chats. You can see the high fives on the screen. You can feel people by their polls that they're putting into the keynote speaking topics. And that to me is really, really satisfying. So I'm very grateful.
Yeah, that's great. Congrats on all the success, Mandy.
You.
And thank you for joining us. You're simple to find on Twitter. You're at Mandy Gill. You're at mandygill.com on Instagram.
Yeah.
And mandygill.com is the website, or is it .ca?
Yeah. You're now understanding why Instagram is mandygill.com. It makes it so easy.
I'm getting it. Mandy, have a great night. It's good to see you. And
you too.
We'll see you online.